Hello there, lovely people, it's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and welcome back to Alex Asks. And last time, I asked you lovely lot, what would you do to improve The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild? Be it in the form of a patch, a total overhaul of some sort, or just DLC? Well, here's just what a few of you had to say. Meme Gamer says, I'd add a few more runes or a default close-range weapon that can't break. I've heard this argument time and time again for, sort of just a basic weapon that you can use and maybe isn't very powerful, but never breaks, so you've always got something to defend yourself with. And I can see the logic there, I really can, but I really can't see it working, because it would have to be weak, because otherwise you just use it all the time. Think like, sort of the Master Sword, but it never runs out of energy, but you just use that forever. You wouldn't then pick up the better items, because it would just be too inconvenient. You just run around with the Master Sword all the time. It'd be too overpowered, and I think by having that cooldown on the Master Sword and by having other weapons break, it makes you appreciate the weapons all the more, because you know it's not forever. I can really see why people would want that, but I don't know. I think the breakable weapons, if I can say it, I think the breakable weapons is a really strong factor in Breath of the Wild, because it forces you to try new things and not just rely on a single weapon, and I just think it's pretty tasty. Torren Crescent says, I'm hoping the Hookshot or some variant of it comes out in a future DLC. Would be great to glide and grapple around the world, gliding, then shield surfing and hookshotting onto an overhang to gain momentum. I would very much have exactly the same sentiment if something like that were to happen. Just that final thing that you said at the end, where you're just sort of shield surfing and you hookshot to gain momentum, it's like playing a Spider-Man game, and although it's not a Spider-Man game, but it's pretty close, because you can climb on anything and almost do anything a spider can. Except use webs to gain momentum. Matthew DeSantis says, bigger and more distinct dungeons. Also, I wouldn't mind dungeons being a tad more linear, as in old Zelda games. Who'd have thought that? People actually asking for linear stuff. That never happens. I do agree. In regards to Breath of the Wild, I do think maybe they veered a little bit too far away from the original Zelda formula, if you like, especially in regards to the dungeons. But then again, I think, so they were trying all these new ideas. Not everything was going to work, and although I think the dungeons in Breath of the Wild are good, I do think they could have been expanded upon a little bit more and maybe make them a little bit more traditional in the Zelda sense, so I agree with that. Maybe in the form of some sort of DLC, we can get some new dungeons going on in there that are a bit more traditional. Who knows? It would be nice, but I'm not going to hold my breath. Jimmy Olsen says, add Tingle. I really don't get why so many people dislike Tingle. I mean, Jimmy here clearly really likes Tingle, and I agree. I think he brings a wonderful sort of comic relief to Zelda, and I know Zelda isn't terribly serious as long as it's not Twilight Princess, anyway, although that did still have its lighter moments. But even so, Tingle is just this wonderful character, because people find him annoying, but he's just this sort of marginally podgy, middle-aged guy who genuinely believes he's a fairy running around in a green leotard, and it's just beautiful. I'd love for some weird, like, semi-realistic Tingle to appear in Breath of the Wild. That would just make my year. Beer TJE373 or something to that description says, I would improve Zelda by adding 2 extra game slots. Yes, you can make other profiles on your Switch and start a new game, but it does not feel the same. For me, it was a very prime thing in the Zelda formula, and I was a bit bummed that it wasn't on there. It did not ruin the experience, of course, but I would have loved it. Now, what you have failed to notice is that in Majora's Mask there were only 2 save slots. There were only 2 save slots. But that's not really important. I can kind of see where you're coming from, but you've already sort of answered your own sort of debate in your description. You've said that you can just create new profiles and do it that way, and yeah, that's what you do. You create a new profile and you get a new game. It's not a big deal. But I mean, it wouldn't make the game bad if it were there, but at the same time, it doesn't need it, because you've already got a workaround for it. Moving on. Trista Maniac Space exclamation mark says, I would add more enemy variety. The bokoblins, moblins, and Lizalfos everywhere gets pretty repetitive. I have to agree with this one as well. I mean, I think there's a fair amount of variety, because you're not taking things like the little mini stone taluses. It's like a pebble talus or stone pebble tus or something along those lines. And you've also got things like the Octoroks and things like that. But when it comes to the actual in-base enemies, it is pretty limited, and I'd like to see more things like, I'd love to see something like a Stalfos come alive and things like that, which I know we've had, I know we've got like Stalbokoblins or like Stalkoblins or whatever they're calling them, and like Staloblins. There's a lot of Stal things, but we don't actually have a Stalfos with the shield and the really beefy enemy, Iron Knuckles, things like that. There are so many fantastic Zelda enemies. It does feel like things have fallen a little bit short in Breath of the Wild, which is a shame. Count95 says, I would love to see weapons be integrated into the crafting system. You can combine a royal sword with some topaz and get a royal thunder sword, or be able to screw up and get some junk that you can only throw at enemies. I honestly think that's a great idea, especially the idea of creating sort of like a dubious weapon, like dubious food or something like that. Something that just doesn't work and is just a total mess, but you can just use, and you can just throw it in an enemy, but sort of, it's not sharp, or it's just not useful in some way. I think that's fantastic, and it could be really interesting. I don't see how you could integrate it into the game now, but maybe in a future Zelda, I could see that working. I think that'd be fantastic. Portal King is back again, and about time too, and says, I'd add DK Bongo controller compatibility, so Link, Hetsu, and Cass can start their own band. Already I can see somebody on YouTube doing some sort of remix with Cass and Hetsu and creating some sort of wonderful mashup, and it's going to be beautiful, and if you do it, please let me know. Actually, yeah, do let me know. Yeah, because I'd love to see that. Captain Sheepy says, add a DLC like at the end of Four Swords, Not Heroes, where you basically play a level or dungeon on Breath of the Wild themed after another Zelda game. Basically, it can I'm really not doing well with my words today. Basically, it could incorporate old Zelda mechanics that weren't in Breath of the Wild, Hookshot, Iron Boots, Hammer, Swinging Underwater, Masks, and Ocarina, etc., but only in those dungeons, so they wouldn't have to. I think that would be fun, but then giving someone a hookshot and it's just being usable in that dungeon, then taking it away would feel a little bit harsh, and I don't know. I think it would be too teasing, too tantalizing. It sounds like a good idea, but maybe a new rune or something like that can then be employed in multiple ways. I don't know, I'm just throwing ideas out there. I'm throwing ideas out there from the ideas you've been throwing out there, and I'm slurring my words like a madman. It's not a good day for Alex's voice. Darth Lobster says, if we're talking DLC, then one thing I hope the DLC adds is because it drives me crazy that you can't max stamina and hearts at the same time. 12 more shrines, please. Plus shrines are fun. That said, I'd also love a Master Quest. More shrines, in my opinion, is a total no-brainer because they're fantastic. They can pop up from anywhere, and there are so many locations where it would make sense for there to be a shrine. So, more shrines, more fun. Yeah, there's no argument there. Also, a Master Quest. If that's the hard mode, if there's a hard mode that is like Master Quest, where it's like remixed and stuff like that, give it to me now. And finally, please, Pepper says, I would add a cookbook. It would make it easier remembering recipes, and it would be another fun thing to complete, finding all possible combinations for meals, potions, etc. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I think it would be another fun thing, as you said, to fill out to get to a couple more percentage out of the game and things like that, because there are so many recipes in there, and it would encourage people to experiment more, because as we recently discovered in our top 10 best recipes in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild video, which you can find up there, shameless self-promotion aside, there are various recipes that will basically cover you for everything, and you don't really need to experiment in other ways, which is a real shame. And I think if there were more incentives to create more fun and original recipes, people would do it more. I think that's where you get with things like, the breakable weapons. It encourages people to use other weapons. And so I think that would be a great way of expanding the cooking area. Who knows, that can actually come out in a DLC, that would be fantastic. Egg puddings and omelettes all round. Massive thanks to everybody who left a comment. Unfortunately, I can't read all of your comments out because you are all too lovely and I would just blow up from all the loveliness. However, you do have a chance to get one of your comments read out in the next episode. And I promise this one will just be in a week's time. And so my question for you this week is, what new abilities and gear, perks would you like to see in Splatoon 2? Now, I really want to open this up. I don't want you just to be talking about the things that would make logical sense. I want you to go mad and really think about all the things that you would love to see. You know, we're talking special abilities, you know, special attacks, if you like, gear abilities. Just go mad, throw it all out there, down there in the comments. Let us know. I'll be waiting. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you slur your way through an entire video despite the fact you've not had anything to drink at all? And be sure to check out nintendolife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye.